I was born in Copenhagen, Denmark in 1998. I was a month and a half premature, so a really tiny little thing. Not to worry though, by the age of 1, I was already quite the chonker. While my mom finished school and enjoyed her last few years of freedom in her early 20s, I moved to Belarus with my babushka. Despite how young I was, a toddler, my memories from there are incredibly vivid. I remember playing outside our apartment building. There was a sandbox, and I had a few friends, kids who were 5 or 6. My babushka would watch me from the window. She spoiled me rotten with food and toys and nice clothes, none of which I particularly appreciated. My mom met my stepdad, whom I just call my dad, of course. He was a Belgian athlete slash contractor passing through. They got married, and I moved back to Denmark for a little while. While I don't remember meeting him for the first time, I do remember meeting my grandpa. I remember being shy and that we were at a pizza place. From there, we moved to New Jersey, where my dad had work. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment. My mom and I would take a train to New York City often, and I remember visiting an amazing toy store with a huge indoor Ferris wheel and a princess castle. My parents assured me that it was quite small in reality. We moved to Ontario, Canada when I was 6. I remember walking through thigh-deep snowdrifts, and later in the summer the swing my dad put up in a very tall tree. This was actually a very tall tree. We got my sweet cat Phoebe later that year. I loved her little black nose and chin and beautiful eyes. She died not very long ago, unfortunately. I miss her. When I was 9, my little brother Max was born. He was chubby and loud and always had to win at everything, and I was used to as a free babysitter for him, basically. He aggravated me to no end, but I loved him, of course. I was just a spoiled only child, not used to sharing the attention. He was just a little boy, and I regret a lot of my selfish behavior back then. When I was a few days short of 12, one of my best friends was in a horrible accident. It happened right before my eyes, and that I could have prevented it haunted me for a very long time. She was beautiful and kind, and in the days leading up to her death, she was bullied by shitty people in her class. Then, after she died, all those same people suddenly only had good things to say about her, and how much they missed her and loved her, and I'm sad to say my anger at this has yet to fade. When I was 13, my little brother Sam was born. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at just 9 months old, and my poor parents struggled heavily. It requires constant vigilance, and there were many scares. Now they have it more under control, but it's a lifelong thing, so it remains a heavy burden. By now I had matured enough to not be a little shit towards my little baby brothers, and although I resent my parents for forcing me, against my will, to be a full-time babysitter, they were the best things to ever happen to me. Max is quiet and thoughtful, athletic, good at everything. Sam is more like me, artsy and eccentric. A real creative type, you know. I would die for them in a heartbeat. My high school years were pretty uneventful. I made a little group of friends, although I was never really popular. Had some bisexual awakenings. Mostly due to issues with my parents, I developed a lot of mental fuckery midway through. Things really started going downhill after grade 10 when I was cheated on by someone. Also, I'm happy to say we're on great terms now, by the way. But after that, I entered into a bit of a downward spiral. I engaged in many self-destructive behaviors. I hated the way I looked. I couldn't wait to escape my household. Most of my friends were in relationships as well with each other, and while I never really felt left out, it made me sad and envious. On a more positive note, it was around this time that I got really into writing, art, and photography. Some of my proudest achievements include one of my teachers saying I was the best writer he'd had in his class, and another comparing me to Margaret Atwood in my writing, and being voted best Instagram by my peers. I left for university thinking all my problems would be over, but as it turned out, everything got much darker. I didn't make any friends, and without supervision, my self-destructive tendencies only got worse, much worse, often putting my health and definitely my grades in jeopardy. I was in a toxic relationship, failing all my courses, and lying to my parents and friends back home. I finally found some semblance of relief when I connected with a long-distance friend of my toxic partner. We bonded over our shared struggles, dark sense of humor, and our basic need of a friend. I ditched the relationship and, at this friend's encouragement, saw a doctor about my mental health issues and was prescribed a medication that gave me much-needed relief. I remember vividly the sudden rush of clarity, motivation, focus, and enjoyment I got. When you've been depressed for a long time, you start to forget the little things you miss out on, like being able to focus on things, your thoughts suddenly being much more clear and defined, instead of lost in a fog in your mind. It's almost like being in a fugue state. My advice to you, if you're suffering, get help. Just go do it already. Drag your depressed ass to a doctor or an adult you trust and ask for help. That New Year's was a good one too. I saw all my high school friends I'd been avoiding, and I realized, even in my mental state, just how much I loved them and missed having a friend group and being healthy. I could read again, I could make art, I could focus on schoolwork. Unfortunately, first year was almost over at that point, so I wasn't able to bounce back academically. My dear friend, who had helped me with all of this, lived in Newfoundland. It got to the point where we were talking every day, and after many months of this, we both realized we had some pretty strong feelings for each other. So I made the choice to do something very cliche and stupid. I left my family and moved to Newfoundland with him, convinced we were in love, and this was it. I put my whole self in the hands of someone I trusted with everything, someone I depended on in every way. This is a very dangerous thing to do because I was so emotionally reliant on this person. I ignored a lot of red flags and shitty things he did to me. I immediately blamed myself when anything went wrong, asking myself, why am I not good enough? Now, this person is not a bad person, just someone who made a lot of mistakes and has a lot of emotional maturity to acquire. I got hurt a lot as a result. There were good times, but many bad times. But I was convinced I would marry this person. you know, Newfoundland is a beautiful place, but the people are simple, the winters are harsh, and finding work is hard. I visited my family after not seeing them for 6 months, and when I returned, I knew something had changed. I had to go back. Sometimes you don't realize how much you miss someone until you see them again. My old house didn't feel like mine anymore. It was different, and everything just seemed so different. I told my boyfriend I was going back, and he could come with me or not. So we drove back to Ontario that summer together, which was a gorgeous, scenic drive. My family was happy to see me at first, but soon their anger and hurt feelings that I had left returned full force, and it took many months of hard work to repair those relationships, and I regret so deeply hurting the people I love more than anything. We got a small shithole apartment downtown, and I worked many bad jobs before I finally found one that I liked. I rekindled some of my old friendships, and it was amazing how easy those were to return to. Like I said, you don't realize how much you miss someone until you see them again. Meanwhile, I was suffering in my relationship with my boyfriend, and then there was a turning point. I was zoning out at work when it dawned on me the simple notion that it was not my fault. This whole time I'd been blaming myself, when in fact it was his unwillingness to change and see fault in himself that had been the problem the whole time. Then ensued the first sort of 2 or 3 definitive arguments, but already I had a feeling deep in my chest that it wasn't going to work out. Besides our main issues, I also felt that I was missing out by keeping myself in this unhappy relationship. There were people I was friends with that were amazing, and I felt a sense of loss that I wasn't giving myself a chance to be with someone better, especially now that I knew that I deserved someone better. I finally ended things. We still had a lease to finish together, which resulted in some tense and unpleasant months, but I felt so much better. I wasted no time in being with other people, which resulted in one huge, disgusting, icky mistake that I can't even think about without wanting to vomit. It was just so gross. And another thing that had been kind of building up for a long time that was not a mistake at all. It was kind of an exciting, let's say, start that resulted in many people getting mad, but was super worth it. I moved out to my own lovely place and got ready to start college in the fall, going into professional writing, making a living by making ASMR videos, and dabbling in very, very softcore porn. And here we are. Despite everything, I'm very glad that things happened exactly the way they did so that I could be exactly where I am now and be exactly who I am now. So, thank you for listening. Bye.